not gonna lie to you. For the better part of a decade, this player was one of my favorites because he was an underdog, a small guy that didn't really get his chops at the NHL level until a few years ago. Today, what I wanted to do was talk about one of the top left wingers in the NHL, a guy who is fresh off of a Conn Smythe trophy, and who is now a Stanley Cup champion for the Vegas Golden Knights. Let's talk today about Jonathan Marchessault, and whether or not he actually does have a long-term future with the Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights team. Now, as I said, Marchessault was one of my favorite players about 10 years ago-ish. This is because back when he was playing with the AHL Syracuse Crunch, he was a very good point producer. Back in this time frame, 2014-15, he was 22 years old, playing in the farm. He was only 5'9", so definitely not the biggest guy out there. But Marchessault just had so much skill, he was a speedy guy, he worked really hard, and as a result, seeing him in the AHL graduate into the NHL and play a little bit with Tampa Bay, it was a pretty good opportunity for a guy that I definitely felt was on the cusp of potentially breaking out. Now, unfortunately for him, he didn't play too much with the Lightning. He had 2 games played in the 2015 playoff run where they actually went to the Stanley Cup Finals. But Marchessault was slowly starting to creep into the rotation, as in 2015-16, he eventually became a mainstay guy. He played half the year with the Lightning, had 18 points in 45 games played, and was still in this limbo AHL-NHL transition territory. Give it 2 more seasons, and eventually Marchessault made his way over to the Panthers. He had 51 points in 75 games played as a member of the Cats. He really broke out this season and established himself as a prime-time NHL forward, but then the next season we saw ourselves the career high. He got sent over to Vegas alongside of Riley Smith, was a point-per-game guy in the inaugural Golden Knights year, and was a point-per-game in the postseason too. Now, unfortunately for Marchessault, he hasn't been able to replicate that same point production, 75 points in 77 games played, in any succeeding Golden Knights year, but that doesn't really matter because he's still gone out there as a consistent 40, 50, sometimes even 60-point guy, and even in this most recent season, 57 points, 76 games played. He was on pace for 60 points and nearly 30 goals, so he definitely has been a mainstay part of this Vegas Golden Knights core. Even in the postseason, the 5'9", 174-pound winger went out there in the second half of the playoffs pretty much as an absolute monster, 25 points in 22 games played, 13 goals, 12 assists, and as we had noted, the bulk of this production came after the first round, so Marchessault really just took his game to another level. He said, nah, we are finally gonna win this time. We had made the finals once before, we had made the third round 2 other times, and now it's time for us to overtake the entire league. They played off against Florida in the finals, Riley Smith and Marchessault going up against their former team. They handled their business cleanly, neatly, and with no doubts in anybody's mind. Yeah, Vegas played the best in the playoffs. They just got business done. They won the cup. It's a done deal. Marchessault, as we had said, won the Conn Smythe for his efforts as the MVP of the postseason. But as a guy who is making only $5 million a year till the end of 2024 and who is expiring as a UFA, you gotta go out there and start questioning, what does the future hold for Jonathan Marchessault? Just taking a look at his career earnings and the entire body of work he has had in the past, Marchessault has been making sub $1 million every single year until 2018-19. It wasn't until he was a member of the Vegas Golden Knights where he started making this amount of money. He had signed the extension with the Golden Knights after having a pretty okay career in Tampa Bay and Florida, but it's been a while since Marchessault signed that deal, and now as a player who is a Conn Smythe winner and a consistent 50-60 point guy, you could debate that for his next contract, he probably does deserve a tad more than $5 million a season. This is why we go over onto this article published by Chris Gollett on VegasHockeyNow.com. Not always good weather between Marchessault and Cassidy, and there have been no discussions of an extension. Now, this was from a few days ago on August 6th. This is what Marchessault goes out there and talks about. It cites an interview from the guy with TVA Sports, going over the relationship he has with Bruce Cassidy and his entire perspective towards the future. It hasn't always been the rainbow and good weather between us. We got into each other a couple of times on the bench, during games and during the playoffs, but I think he wanted the best out of me, and we managed to be able to work together. He is a coach that I respect, and we won together, so he will always have my respect. This writer on Vegas Hockey Now goes out there and kind of makes a tongue-in-cheek comment about it. Here's what he says. What exactly can we make of that comment? It almost sounds like a breakup when one partner tells the other partner they will always love them. This sounds like the "but we will always be friends" part of the breakup. Relax, everyone. Cassidy and Marchessault are not breaking up. Or are they? Marchessault says this on the TVA interview. There are no negotiations that have been done. I know that sometimes the Golden Knights like to take their time with that. We'll see what it will give. Marchessault said when asked about extension discussions. The writer here on VHN goes out there and says this: it's time to acknowledge reality. There is a possibility that Marchessault is traded sometime before now and when his contract expires after 23-24. Marchessault will be 33 years old when his contract expires and a hot commodity should he opt for free agency. GM Kelly McCrimmon understands that and may try to get something in return versus letting Marchessault walk. We have built something exceptional, but the life of a hockey player is never safe. That's what keeps us humble, and it's possible that the rest of my career will be elsewhere, Marchessault says about his future. And the reason this idea is so intriguing to me is because the Vegas Golden Knights have had their definite issues when it comes to loyalty and keeping players around that deserve to be kept around. We talked the entire time about the Fleury situation, the Leonard situation, other guys like Pacioretty, players who are good, who have been on the move, who were not really known that they were on the move, like Marc-Andre Fleury finding out that he got traded to Chicago via Twitter, not to mention all the young prospects that they've traded away in order to bolster up their retooling on the fly. It's definitely been a process here. But for Jonathan Marchessault, he is a day one misfit. So, is he going to be in the same territory where they could just toss him around and send him away for anything else to try to maximize his value on the trade market? In fact, this entire conversation was brought up on the Spectre's hockey article from August 8th. This is what Spectre's note goes out there and talks about. As the MVP of the 2023 playoffs, Marchessault's trade value will never be higher than it will be this season. We can't rule out the possibility that he does get moved before the March trade deadline, depending on where the Vegas Golden Knights are in the standings by then. Marchessault carries an AAV of $5 million, but in actual salary, he's earning an affordable $3.5 million this season. He also has a 5-team no-trade clause that gives McCrimmon some leeway when it comes to trade destinations. And so, when it comes to Marchessault, this is definitely one of the more intriguing names that could be a free agent next season, based off of the talent that he has. Again, he's a small guy, but he's a feisty guy. He can go out there and score a boatload of points, and when he is on his game, he is absolutely on. One of the more unstoppable players when he really gets into that mindset. And so, when it comes to what that's worth in the market, how far do you go? Do you go $6 million, $6.5 million? I mean, he produces like a $6 million to $6.5 million guy, but he is 32 years old. He'll be 33 by the time free agency opens up in 2024. So where exactly do you go with that? His frame, 5'9", is definitely small enough where it's like you don't really see this type of a player aging out as fast. Like, he probably will retain his speed, he'll probably retain his elusiveness, and his skill has always been there too. These assets are part of the reason he was able to succeed so much as a sub 6 feet player, and these attributes don't necessarily go away easy. But is that enough incentive to go out there and sign a guy like this to a $6 million by, let's say, 3 or 4 years type of deal? Do you take him until he's 37 years old in your team if he's a free agent? And if the Vegas Golden Knights suck next year and they want to try to trade him away, what exactly is the price there? If you're a team that's saying, hey, Marchessault is going to be a free agent next season, or in the offseason, excuse me, but we really want to have him on our team, let's just trade away this prospect, let's trade away this pick, send it over to Vegas, we can get Marchessault now in March and sign him to an extension then. What exactly is the price there? Do you go out there expecting to get a first-round pick, maybe a second, and 2 good prospects, or maybe a roster player that is younger but not as effective? What exactly is the price here for Jonathan Marchessault? What are the odds that you think he actually does get traded? Do the Vegas Golden Knights exercise their disloyalty to their players once again? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the future of Jonathan Marchessault. Is it in Vegas? Is it elsewhere? What does he get traded for? Or does he leave in free agency? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.